Welcome to Future Epoch, where we learn more about our world. On a single evening in the year 2000, the future of entertainment was decided in a conference room. Two men sat across a table. One ran a video rental empire worth billions of dollars. The other had a small DVD by mail company that was still losing money. Reed Hastings, co-founder of Netflix, had come to offer Blockbuster a partnership. He was asking for $50 million. Blockbuster's executives reportedly found the idea so absurd that they laughed him out of the room. Within a decade, Blockbuster had filed for bankruptcy. Within two, Netflix was worth more than $100 billion. This is the story of how one of the most dominant retail brands in American history chose the wrong future and what it cost them. At its peak, Blockbuster was not simply a video rental store. It was an institution. Founded in Dallas, Texas in 1985 by David Cook, Blockbuster grew from a single location into a global chain of nearly 9,000 stores, employing around 60,000 people. On a Friday night in the 1990s, going to Blockbuster was a ritual, browsing the shelves, debating between films, and accepting the consequences if you forgot to rewind. The business model was brutally effective: rent a physical tape, return it on time, or pay a late fee. Those late fees were not incidental. By the early 2000s, they were generating approximately $800 million a year for Blockbuster, representing a substantial portion of total company revenue. The business had been built, in part, on customer inconvenience. That inconvenience would eventually become its greatest vulnerability. Netflix was founded in 1997 by Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph in Scotts Valley, California, initially as a DVD by mail rental service. The concept was straightforward. Instead of driving to a store, customers would select films online, receive DVDs through the post, and return them at their own pace with no late fees. When Netflix introduced its subscription model in 1999, allowing customers to hold up to 4 discs at a time for a flat monthly fee, it was offering something Blockbuster had never considered: convenience without punishment. Blockbuster was aware of the service, but did not regard it as a serious threat. The assumption, not entirely unreasonable at the time, was that online DVD rental appealed only to a niche audience, and that the mass market would always prefer the immediacy of walking into a local store. For most of the late 1990s, that assumption held. It began to crack in the early 2000s. Netflix went public in 2002, and its subscriber base continued to grow steadily. By 2004, Blockbuster's own leadership had concluded the threat was real. Under CEO John Antioco, Blockbuster launched Blockbuster Online as a direct competitor to Netflix's subscription service. That same year, Antioco eliminated late fees entirely in a campaign branded as "No More Late Fees." It was a public acknowledgement that the company understood the tide was turning against it. The problem was that removing late fees cost Blockbuster approximately $400 million in lost annual revenue. With a significant debt load already in place and no alternative income stream ready to absorb that loss, the timing was precarious. The company was attempting to transform itself while standing on a financial foundation that the transformation itself was undermining. The most consequential moment in this story may not be the 2000 meeting at all, but what happened to Blockbuster's leadership 7 years later. In 2007, activist investor Carl Icahn, who had accumulated a significant stake in the company, moved against CEO John Antioco, the man who had been attempting, however imperfectly, to reposition Blockbuster as a digital competitor. Antioco was replaced by Jim Keyes, a retail executive best known for his work at convenience store chain 7-Eleven. Keyes arrived with a philosophy shaped entirely by physical retail. In an interview published in 2008, he stated that he did not see Netflix as a meaningful threat and that his primary competitive concerns were Walmart and other brick-and-mortar retailers. The timing of that statement is difficult to overstate. Netflix had launched its streaming service in 2007, the same year Keyes took over. Streaming required no discs, no envelopes, and no store visits. It required nothing but an internet connection and a monthly subscription. The strategic divergence in that period is almost architectural in its clarity. At precisely the moment Netflix was moving toward frictionless, instant, on-demand viewing, Blockbuster was retreating toward a conventional retail playbook. Blockbuster had possessed genuine opportunities to acquire or partner with digital competitors throughout the early 2000s. The $50 million Hastings had asked for in 2000 looks, in retrospect, like the cheapest possible insurance policy against extinction. What Blockbuster spent annually on maintaining its store estate alone dwarfed that figure many times over. Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy in September 2010, carrying approximately $900 million in debt. The filing was the end of any realistic path to recovery. In 2011, Dish Network acquired what remained of the company for roughly $320 million, a fraction of a business that had once been valued in the billions and had operated on nearly every high street in the English-speaking world. Store closures accelerated rapidly after the acquisition. By 2013, the vast majority of locations worldwide had shut permanently. Today, a single Blockbuster store survives in Bend, Oregon, the last of its kind anywhere on Earth. It still rents DVDs. People travel specifically to visit it, not because they need a physical copy of a film, but because standing inside it feels like standing inside a lesson. Netflix, over the same period, became one of the most valuable entertainment companies on the planet. It moved from DVDs to streaming, from licensing other studios' content to producing its own, and from a domestic American business to a global platform operating in nearly every country. The subscriber base that stood in the millions during the competitive battles of the mid-2000s had grown into the hundreds of millions. The same commitment to customer convenience that had originally driven the DVD by mail model continued to inform every subsequent strategic decision the company made. What this story genuinely illustrates is the cost of institutional inertia and the particular danger of building a business model on friction that customers tolerate only because they have no alternative. The $800 million Blockbuster collected annually in late fees was not a sign of commercial strength. It was a sign of a captive market. The moment a credible alternative appeared, one with no late fees, no required travel, and no limited physical inventory, the loyalty that Blockbuster had assumed it possessed simply did not exist. Customers had never loved the experience. They had merely accepted it. That is a fundamentally different thing, and mistaking one for the other is among the most common and most expensive errors a dominant company can make. There is a second lesson embedded here about the timing of transformation. Blockbuster's digital pivot under Antioco was genuine. In 2006 and early 2007, Blockbuster Online was competing seriously enough that Netflix's own investor filings acknowledged the pressure it was placing on subscriber growth. The removal of Antioco and the reversal of that strategy did not merely slow Blockbuster's momentum. It closed the window in which recovery was still plausible, and it did so at the exact moment when the streaming transition was beginning in earnest. There is one Blockbuster store left on Earth. It stands in a small city in Oregon, and it still rents DVDs. People drive hours to visit it, not because they need a physical disc, but because it represents something that is difficult to articulate and impossible to ignore. It is a reminder that the largest and most established businesses are never as permanent as they appear from the inside, and that the forces eventually capable of displacing them are almost always visible long before they arrive. Blockbuster did not fail because it was poorly run. It failed because the gap between recognizing a threat and being structurally capable of responding to it was too wide to close in the time available. The company saw Netflix. It understood, at least at moments, what was happening. It had a CEO who was actively trying to change course. And it still could not move fast enough. The question worth sitting with is not why Blockbuster failed. It is which company, right now, is sitting in the same position, large, dominant, profitable, and quietly unable to believe that the business model sustaining it could one day simply stop working. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this content and want to see more, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel.